the take that they or the route that they go down with for Superman in here is incredibly influential because you have a whole generation of fans that now view this version of Superman as the definitive version of Superman. For Superman, it's as we've been doing for the entire, honestly, year and a half, kind of leading up to Superman, we've been looking back at the things that have made the character. And we would be remiss if we do not talk about Man of Steel. So, SB, did you know this Saturday, 3 days from now, June 14th, 3 days, will be the 12-year anniversary of Man of Steel. 2013, this film came out. SB.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was 12 years, but I didn't know the exact date.
June 14th. 3 days to the year. 12 years ago. A young, very, very young hero and a very, very young Brando out there watching Man of Steel somewhere. Where were we? I don't remember, but I know we watched it.
No idea.
Yeah.
Truly, I can't remember if I saw it in theaters or not.
I know I did. I just don't remember where I did, but I know I did. I think we were on vacation with my family, so that's the main reason I say I don't remember, because I know it wasn't back home. But SB, kind of going into this, and as you rewatched Man of Steel, knowing we were going to talk about this topic and having the knowledge you have now and comparing it to what you didn't have before, tell us a little bit about your feelings of Man of Steel before and now after rewatching it with all this knowledge in 2025.
Before the Superman era that I'm in, I remember enjoying Man of Steel, but it wasn't like at the time one of my favorites, because I wasn't really into Superman like 12 years ago when it came out. But knowing what I know now, and I can't remember if this last time I rewatched it since before this past year. So I rewatched it a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And I really enjoyed it. I was reading a bunch of Superman comics at the time, and I was like, damn, I think I was too critical on this movie and interpretation of Superman. And it hit a little different for me. There's some gripes I had that we will definitely go into still. But overall, it still felt pretty good. And the score is really good. That score was always freaking awesome. It has a lot of sauce in it, obviously. It's a really good movie. Like, even back then, I thought it was a good movie. I don't know. It wasn't one that I was, like, crazy sought after, because I didn't really care for Superman, like I said. But now, after reading and after rewatching it last night a second time, it's still a movie that I still feel like I don't know how to feel about it. Besides it just being, like, obviously crediting it for being such a good overall film. But there's just something about it that such like a unique take on Superman. And as we're reading all these comics, like Whatever Happened to Man of Tomorrow, you see him kill someone in that, and then obviously with the whole Zod scene in here, they both are justified, I think, in that way, because but it's so hard because we're not used to seeing Superman do that, obviously. So it's very unique movie. Cavill definitely looks great.
For sure.
Definitely looks great. I wish the suit was a little bit lighter in there, but like I understand where they're going with everything, like kind of completely reading more into like the background and the takes on it. And it's just a very, very unique movie. That's what I got.
No, and that's that's great to hear. And I always love seeing your perspective, because you have such a unique perspective, I think, especially between the three of us on the pod, where Superman was kind of on the lower level for you as a hero. And now to see where you're at with him and to see how hyped up you are for Superman, but also Superman as a character now in general. I always love hearing what you think when you go back and watch some of these projects.
Fun.
It's super fun to see your reaction. So,
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I remember, I don't know if we did an overall superhero ranking on the pod before, like when we first started, or if it was just like a Marvel one. But I think we did like a overall superhero one off stream after one episode.
yeah.
And I remember I was like, Superman like didn't even hit my top 15 at that point.
Yeah, which is
And I
crazy.
was like, the last fucking years, he skyrocketed up there.
Yeah,
Like, I have so much fucking, my collection went crazy, and I've just appreciated all different types of versions of the character a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's awesome to see. But yeah, Dill, 12 years ago, we're getting old, man.
Yep.
But yeah, no. So for me, I've always enjoyed Man of Steel, and I'm pretty sure I've said that on the pod, but I know I've definitely said it off the pod. I think Man of Steel is a good movie. Like, I don't think there is anything bad that Man of Steel does. There are questionable choices, especially once you know what Superman as a character is supposed to stand for. And I think a lot of the kind of negativity that surrounds Man of Steel in specific comes from everything that comes later, specifically Batman versus Superman, the Justice League, both versions, and then kind of hearing the plans that Snyder had, and then kind of the negative version of the fan base that came out. I think clouds a lot of people when it comes to talking about this movie. But when you rewatch it and you really like go into trying to, I think, critique it based on its own merits, like I think there is a lot to like about it, right? Like you said, it looks awesome. The movie looks fantastic. There's literally no complaints when it comes to that. Dill, we're definitely going to get to that in a little bit, so definitely stay tuned. Movie looks fantastic. Score is great. Sound design on it is honestly super cool. Cavill knows how to deliver a great performance, and the ensemble cast also, I think, does a really good job. Everybody feels like they fit into the universe very well. No one feels out of place in terms of characters. So again, overall, it's enjoyable. The action, I have to credit the action. It is good. Despite Metropolis getting reduced to ash for much of it, or rubble, better said. I like the action. It's good. It's entertaining. The flying scenes are awesome. Cal finding out more about his heritage is super cool. There's a lot to enjoy, and I've always enjoyed that about Man of Steel. Again, I think just as time has gone on, the negativity of the fan base in general has clouded that. And I think it's done that for almost everybody. Because I think when you talk about Snyder, unfortunately, that is what happens. Like, a cloud kind of goes, a cloud and a shadow kind of goes over it unfairly.
Cloud comes out.
Yeah. Unfairly and fairly sometimes, because some people do take it too far. But then other times when you're trying to have like an honest conversation, it just doesn't really it doesn't get the honor I think it deserves. Because also, whether you love or you hate the take that this movie went with Superman, and SB, I would love to kind of hear your perspective on this, especially since you went back and watched some of the older Superman films. The take that the route that they go down with for Superman in here is incredibly influential, because you have a whole generation of fans that now view this version of Superman as the definitive version of Superman.
And I do see why there's like a divide. I like, even in Spider-Man are all variations of superheroes that get rebooted. Everybody's always gonna have their favorite that they grew up with. Like, people in my generation, our generation, are always gonna say Toby's the best, but I always think Andrew's the best, and I don't care what anybody says. But we grew up with Toby, and obviously that's gonna be who we think is like the definitive version and stuff. So the same goes for Superman, and rewatching all the old movies definitely makes you realize how good Man of Steel is, because of like 2, 3, and 4 are just kind of just bad overall movies. Like Reeves is great in them. Like he was phenomenal Superman and delivered that great like hope, humanity, and really studied and like wanted to like deliver the humanness in Superman, and we got that. Cavill did a pretty good job as well throughout the movie. I just feel like once he did like learn he was from Krypton, he kind of like escalated his like Krypton heritage a little bit. But I don't know. Rewatching it again made me think a little bit less of that, because that was like one of the initial things I thought from one of my gripes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I think you were on the cusp of something.
I was gonna say overall, I do like the different like tone and like why Snyder went that route, because it's different. Like the other like in Superman Returns, you don't even there's no like there's no fight. He doesn't even throw a punch in there. And Superman 1 or 2, the same thing. There's like there's not a lot of action. And then in here, there's a lot of freaking action. The whole city is destroyed pretty much, but it's also his first day on the job as Superman. So when you really like put that in perspective, he's very rageful. We just found out he's an alien, and this guy is like threatening to kill his mom after he just saw his dad die. So I makes sense to why he kind of goes like rageful and doesn't pull his punches. You saw Andrew in Amazing No Way Home even said that when he was going stop pulling his punches, and who knows what happened in that. But point is, it's no injustice, which I'm happy. Injustice would have been like a weird take. Weird. Didn't really like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna go into it more because obviously that does like leads to Batman vs Superman and Justice League. I don't want to get into that stuff here, but I'm happy it didn't start off like that. Is what I was trying to like point out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's the big point here, is that for as wild as things get later on, I truly think that there's a good foundation for what honestly could have been a really good, if not great, Superman storyline. Because I do think there's something inherently interesting, because it is at the core of Superman, right? As we've read these stories, the kind of like, is he a god or is he a man? There is those elements in almost all of these books in one way or another. So it's tied into Superman. And I think the first movie does a good job of laying that foundation and making Clark and Superman really question, like, I have this great power. It reminds me a lot of like All-Star, or not All-Star, For All Seasons, when he's talking to the pastor, where he's like, hey, if one person has this power, like, should he save as many as he can? Like, that's kind of the question that Man of Steel goes down.
Did pretty much they did have a scene like that, right? When Man of Steel and Henry would really talk to the pastor.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and for me, the bigger kind of scene that jumps out for me is the one with Pa Kent, with Jonathan Kent, when he's talking to him after he saved the school bus, and he's like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, I have this power, and he's like, should I just let him die? And he's like, maybe. Which I think we should definitely get into more of the gripes now, right? I know SB, you said you had a couple of them. So for you personally, what are your main gripes?
I'm still not going to get over Jonathan Kent a little bit with the tornado. I understand it, but it so could have been prevented. and he could have. I don't know. It just felt out of.
Do you,
It just felt out from the Superman lore. Like you see him in. I was gonna say For All Seasons when he sees him in the river, but that's a little different because he was already like Superman at the time. So ask that
so,
question that you're thinking.
I was gonna say, so let me ask. Do you feel, because I think for a lot of people, like Dylan was bringing up earlier, Jonathan Kent is a big point of contention for a lot of people. When I was doing research and I was trying to see what people like really didn't like, this is without a doubt one of the biggest ones that jumps to a lot of people. So knowing what we know, right, and after reading all these books, do you feel like this portrayal of Jonathan Kent goes too different, like way too different in a direction?
I think so. All of it. The um, because all the comics that we've read, you don't really. I mean, you get to see his perspective in For All Seasons, issue 1 when it starts, but like I wouldn't think that For All Seasons podcast would pretty much tell him not to save people like that with the school bus thing. I don't know how to say what I want to say at the
Yeah.
moment.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because it's like, I think for me, the big thing is that when I think of like Pa Kent, especially after reading these books now, I always think of Pa Kent as this fatherly figure who will always try to do things in the best interest of Clark, right? And I think he still does that, but I think he goes about it in a way that's more of a cynical outtake on life and more of like to me, part of what makes Superman Superman, especially again after reading and doing more research on him, is that he finds how to make the best out of every situation, right? Where he will always put himself first, or he will always put his body on the line, his life on the line, even if it's not going to do anything for others, right? Even if that meant exposing himself and the powers that he had. Like he'll do that because that's just the way that Clark is. So much so that it bothers him if he can't do it. And I think here, I do think you can have somebody tell him like, "Hey, you shouldn't do these things. Like you absolutely shouldn't." But I don't think that needs to be coming from his father, his adoptive father, the person who is raising him and teaching him how to be a human, how to be a good man in this world. I never really get that sense between them. I get that sense of more of a, when I think of Pa Kent in the books, I think of someone who's more warm, more inviting, somebody who will give you the shirt off his back because you need help, even if he doesn't necessarily have a whole lot. That's the kind of person that Jonathan Kent is. And here, it's more like a, yeah, I'll help you out. I'm like, please kind of go away. After that, like, I'll help. Like after that, like if you really need it. But will I put myself in front, will I put you over myself first? Probably not. That's just my personal opinion about it. And I think a lot of people feel that too. Especially because I think his main point here is that, hey, if people need to die, and that's it. Like, you need to be okay with that. Is to me what he tells Clark when he saves the school bus. And that just feels like such a betrayal of his character. Yeah.
I thought Kevin Costner had a good performance as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't like what he was tasked to do with kind of conflicting with hiding powers and stuff. But I also do kind of understand it because you don't really want. I don't understand it. You're supposed to do good no matter what.
And that's my point. I think the big thing is that ultimate, and this will lead into another big choice that I'm curious to hear your opinion on, which is the finale, right? With Zod being killed. Because to me personally, right, I've always had a hard time with that scene because at the end of it, they're fighting. They fought through in case someone hasn't seen it, spoiler alert for a 12-year-old movie.
12 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, and just in case, you never know. But at the end of the movie, Zod is shooting his laser beams, and he's like inching closer and closer to his family, and Cal snaps his neck. And then he just starts crying, and like he's in distress. And myself personally, when I look at that scene, especially now, especially looking at the context of everything that happens in this movie, everything that Jonathan tells him, especially again, going back to that point of like, sometimes death is inevitable. And that's the right thing to do. So to me, the movie is telling Cal, and basically the man that raised him, is like that, hey, sometimes if you have to, letting someone die or even killing them is the right moral thing to do. You've done the right thing. In a way, be not proud of yourself, but you can live with that. So when I see him cry, I don't feel bad for him, and it kind of confuses me a little bit.
I don't know what to say about that.
And maybe
to me,
mm-hmm.
I would understand why he cries after killing someone.
Even if it's an evil dictator who is
look at Mark.
On...
Look at Mark in Invincible after he killed the Levy, who just pretty much did exactly what Zod and Superman just did. Scene for scene. Shot for shot. Invincible cried after that too and was always moping because he doesn't want to break that golden rule. And in whatever happened tomorrow, he literally retires as Superman after that. So that's why it's so weird seeing him like in the first movie from the get-go, boom, off someone.
I agree. No, I agree 100%. And I think the problem for me personally, Invincible though, is that Mark doesn't want to do that because there's a reason of him fearing being like his father, him being like Omni-Man. That's the main reason that he doesn't want to. And based off his upbringing, they've taught him the value of life. And what a hero means is you save as many lives as possible. And again, here, Pa Kent is like, save as many lives as possible. But like if a couple people die because it means showing your identity or for whatever other reason, then like
that is saving as many lives as possible, because Zod wasn't just going to stop at that family. He's predetermined and destined to do everything to stop the people to protect the people of Krypton. And they made that on like the second rewatch. They make it pretty clear on how Kryptonians are like predetermined to do stuff, and Zod literally pretty much admits that he's pre-coded to always do that, and like he won't stop. So he would have kept going if it would not have that family. He was going to keep going with that laser beam. Would keep fighting Superman over and over and over and over again.
I agree, and again, like I agree with that point. Like Zod does need to be stopped. So, but again, I asked why you cry then, because
he
also
didn't want to.
But the main point that he had
even though because he never agreed with anything his dad was telling him about that. He always wanted to save the people and use his powers. Okay. And he wanted to save his dad in the tornado, but he obviously respected his dad enough to go against that wish when he was older. But he was always frustrated with his dad when they had those conversations of telling him not to use his powers and to not save people. So it's not like It's not like he was like just it was drilled into him, but it's not like he was
agreeing with that.
Like consuming it so much.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, now that you say that, that is true, because I don't know why that's not something I didn't think about, but when I still see it, it doesn't sit right.
I know, I fully get it. It's like the whole Martha scene for me in BVS. Like I said, I don't want to get into that too much, but like you fully break it down and everything, makes sense. It just still doesn't sit right. So
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, that's true.
It took me, like I said, the 2 rewatches to like after the first one, it didn't feel good. but I think the second rewatch I did last night and
Makes it a
kind of
little
just
better.
like sitting on whatever happens to me in it tomorrow even more kind of makes it a little bit better.
That's fair. That's fair. Dill, weird. Both of his dads played Robin Hood. Very true. Not a comparison I would have ever thought about.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Good point. Okay. So another point of contention that I've seen for some reason, Zod. How do you feel on Zod?
I like Zod. I've been seeing, yeah, like you said, I was surprised seeing all the contention about that. I thought Michael Shannon, was Michael Shannon? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he freaking killed it as Zod.
I think he does the good as
I
Zod,
thought
to
he
be
was
honest.
great. He was menacing. I thought his dialogue was good. He was really, like, when he was talking, you could tell he felt like he was, like, predetermined in what he had to do and, like, only was looking after his tasks to protect Krypton or get that codex back. So I thought he was really good in it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like him a lot in this too. And it was funny because we were talking about this earlier today, and I think for me personally, I always wondered what this movie could look like if they had a different villain, someone who wasn't just like, I know he's not Superman clone, but basically evil version of just Superman. Um, like how you could spin that into this movie, but I think the movie doesn't work as well if you don't have Zod. I think Zod is able to kind of challenge a lot of his views because of how he views authority and who he is as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really get to reply to that earlier in the Discord, which you should be in. Um but I thought Zod was a great pick for the movie. I try to imagine like Bizarro being an origin villain and I don't really see it that much. But Brainiac I could see obviously because he's like just iconic. Um I'm kind of happy it wasn't Lex as an origin villain because we had those every time in every Superman movie before that. So I thought Zod was good. I thought Zod was a pretty good pick for it, even though we had it in Superman too. I just realized that. Um, but it wasn't like always Lex,
Yeah,
and
which is better.
yeah,
A little
I felt
more.
good. I felt good to see it.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm hyped for Lex in Superman 2025, but that's different. That's a different story.
That's a different, yeah, I was gonna say that's definitely a different conversation.
Yep.
But yeah, no, ultimately I think this movie does have its ups and downs, right? And trying to think of anything that can be considered more controversial, but in case anybody in chat, if you think of anything else, uh, I
There's
think we both go ahead.
there's um kind of the darkness to it is obviously one of the most controversial stuff and not being so like up and at 'em with the hope messaging and stuff like
Yeah,
that. That's been a critique, obviously, and that's kind of what we're so hopeful about the future of it.
agreed. It's funny though, because like I think out of all of Cannibal's appearances, I think this is the one that does feel the most hopeful so far. Because again, and that's why I say I think this movie does have a good foundation because
What do you
you
mean
see
between like
flickers of hope.
BVS and
Yeah,
yeah. No, I agree with that.
you see
Out of
flickers
all of
of
them,
hope
this
in
one
this one.
definitely was the best of the three, but I don't know. I still didn't feel like,
Cal all the way.
yeah, still didn't feel like for all seasons, essentially. You know, I made a comparison earlier on Twitter that like, um, what's up, Hunter? Welcome in, welcome in.
What's up? What's up?
But I made a comparison on Twitter the other day that Snyder and like Man of Steel and stuff is like Kingdom Come. It still gets the message of hope across at the end. And what we're probably going to get in Superman 2025 is like For All Seasons. For All Seasons is just simple, easy to take in, just basic human hope. And Kingdom Come, you still get the message of hope and kind of like similar stuff in there, but obviously more deeper and not as like easy to pick up.
Yeah.
And this is actually how I've been feeling as I've been thinking about like the whole Man of Steel and Superman 2025. And I was like, damn, this might be a killer analogy.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think ultimately it tries to land that type of balance, and I don't think it fully sticks the landing, but it does get there. It does get there. I just think it wasn't what people were expecting, and then again, much later on, it deviates very, very far. But to that point, and I think Dill, you triggered the other thing that I was gonna say because I knew there was another thing. Why didn't Superman try to take the fight against the Kryptonians out of Smallville, move away from the civilians? And I think that's my biggest gripe with, aside from Pa Kent, is the way that they treat the collateral damage in the film, because there's so many times. Because I've seen people online talk about this aspect of the film, and they're like, "Oh, he does try." I'm sorry. There are times where he straight up punches Zod and the other Kryptonians through several buildings out of his own power. It would be very different if this was like, for example, an Invincible situation where like Zod and the Kryptonians grab him in there, which they do a couple times, but I mean fully every single time, just grab him and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go run through 18 buildings." No, there's times where Zod is like, he's holding Zod by the neck and he's controlling him, crashing him through a couple of floors. I look at that and I'm like, I wish they changed that aspect of it, because I think it would be very cool to see him scramble to try to save as many lives as possible. But they don't really do that, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think as cool as the action and the fight was, a little less scenes of it and more of like cutaways to maybe him trying to like save people or just like obviously just him trying to bring the fight elsewhere. Like
Yes.
yeah, I get it's his first day as Superman, kind of like what I alluded to earlier. He's rageful and not like pulling his punches. That was one of my. Oh, someone's car's going off.
I was gonna say, Super Zod just got
Yeah.
pushed through that car.
Or more one for you.
No, he's coming to you. He stole the car to go to you.
20 hours I got left.
I was gonna say, because Moreland needs a car apparently, so it's whatever.
But so it was his first day and pretty much first day on the job and rageful. So he wasn't really thinking like all that clear to do that. But you would think how smart he is, he would. The one gripe I have in specific though is the shot of him fucking aura farming through the LexCorp freaking propane tanks and just perfectly jumping in between there, and you get the Michael Bay explosion in the background. I'm like, dude, you could have stopped those. Like that's like a scene exactly where like instead of aura farming, you could have just stopped the tanks. And I had someone say in reply to that, like, "Oh, he didn't know they were gonna explode." I'm like, they're fucking propane tanks, dude. Anyone you could see, like any time you see like trailer tanks in that fucking type of container, you know that shit could explode. I don't care what's in there. They don't put non-explosive stuff in those type of trailer containers. Like
he knew.
he could have
He
just
knew.
stopped it. Boom, boom. They're like, "Oh yeah, let me just squeeze through this gap right here and land like a badass." That
Yeah.
was a great, cool scene, but who knows if there are people in that building?
I was gonna say,
I don't know.
there's at least one
Batman.
poor night shift worker or whatever it was who just got blown up.
I do want to bring this up though, because this is a very good critique that this movie's been dealing with for years, and we're might be seeing something similar with Superman 2025. And a lot of people that critique the movie for now are liking what they're seeing there. There's a couple buildings falling down in the trailers and teasers that we got, but there's a couple set photos that may debunk stuff, or like stuff out there that may debunk things. So not general audience sees that and questions why there's so much critique on this movie. It's cool to see nowadays, and I'm like, we won't know until a month from today, less than a month from today,
Yeah.
how that goes about. But I don't know. I just think it's interesting now to see that like duality.
And it's funny because I have seen that too, especially with like the latest trailer that came out. I think it was Tuesday, to promote the ticket sales. But I think it's the simple,
Even
it's the
today's
little
trailer, there's a good amount of damage in that city. Freaking
there is, but I think
ripping apart.
It comes down to the scene, and this is the only comparison I'll do, just for this one comparison's sake, because I think it goes to the point we're trying to make, is the woman that's trying to drive away from the falling building, and clearly she's not going to make it. Whatever happened is something as a result of something else, probably not Superman, right?
That's true.
We can kind of assume, but he does try to stop it. And not just try, but he does stop it.
That is true.
To save her. She's literally the only person that you can see trying to drive away from it. So he stops the entire building for that one person. And I think that's the big difference, where it's like this Cavill Superman feels like not necessarily him, but necessarily the way that Snyder kind of directed it, is that like he is okay with collateral damage. Like if a couple people get killed, like in his mind, it feels like he would really reason and be like, it's okay because I tried my best. That wasn't my fault. And I think that piece of Spider-Man, Superman, goes too far as to what the character should be. And then Dill saying we have Flash debating whether or not he should help. Also true, but that's a different can of worms that we won't talk about. But yeah, ultimately, I think with a few minor tweaks, I think, to be honest, for me personally, taking away not taking away, but changing how the destruction of like Metropolis kind of happens, and then also tweaking Pa Kent, I think this movie could have been great, as opposed to just kind of like good.
I agree. I think I'll take that and say it could have been a great Superman movie, because I think it's a great movie and like very well done, like overall.
And that's a very fair point, because I do think if this is a wholly original, like brand new character, this is probably going down as like a great movie. I just don't think it is, because it is Superman.
Yeah. But what would you rate it out of 10? So I've been thinking about it for a while.
Honestly, like 7.5.
That's honestly right around what I was thinking. I was stuck between like 7 and 8.
Yeah.
But I think 7.5 is perfect. I'll be weird and do my usual thing and go 7.25.
7.25. Yeah, I just feel like a 7 is too low, but an 8 is too high. Because I think like the couple of things that it does have is too much for it, and it does hold it back personally. For it to be any higher.
I get that.
But again, like genuinely good movie.
The score, man. I love that score. It's so euphoric.
Fantastic. Score's fantastic. Shots are fantastic to see. I have to say it, because they also do a good job of this, and I will never not gripe on this when I get the opportunity to. They do a good job of showing super speed. A very good job.
They do. What's better than the Flash? How
ironic. And it's not even ironic. It shouldn't be ironic. But they do a very good job of like showing super speed, and I have to give them props for that. And like the showcase of everybody's powers, especially of like all the Kryptonians, They feel cool.
I do like the Krypton world building they did, and kind of how like
That too. Krypton looked cool too.
unique they made it feel.
Yes.
I learned today that they literally went like Dothraki and like made like a whole Kryptonian like language from scratch and like
Really?
dialect and stuff. And yeah, they went hard on all that set design for it. It's cool, but they got to differentiate it a little bit because they had to make it fit for the story they're going for.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool overall looking, and the first 20 minutes opening it up was cool to see.
Yeah. It was a little long for me personally. Like a little too long. But it
I
was
think
still fun to see.
the second rewatch, I was like, damn, this is kind of. I was like, what movie am I watching for a second?
Yeah. For a little bit, you get lost and you're like, oh, okay. There we go.
Like, oh yeah,
If they
it's a
cut it down
fantasy.
a couple minutes, like, yeah, should have done
It's
that.
needed though to kind of like understand the rest.
Not as much.
I don't know.
Not as much. I feel like you could split some of it up
I
throughout
think
the
so.
movie.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so. You know what would really be good? Actually, something I said in Discord too. If they had more of the Jor-El and Clark dialogue when he first like goes onto the ship, if they had that throughout the Zod fight, and I think what could have made this movie a 10 out of 10, if they had that from the Jor-El and Clark dialogue sprinkled throughout the Zod fight, with him trying to like realize like, oh, I need to like do better, like we are saying, to like
Yeah.
stop the casualties. That would be freaking awesome if they did that combo off. Because one gripe on my first rewatch was something I said earlier about how I didn't really like how like Kryptonian they made him feel immediately after he put that suit on, and like kind of felt like a loss of humaneness after that a little bit. Like on my first watch. But I think this would have helped that for like everybody to not even think that in the first place, because that would have been,
I agree.
just seeing that, like hearing those words of him helping humanity out as he's trying to save it and like save the construction from the city would have cooked.
I agree. I agree. And it's very interesting that you brought that up because Lou, our third host who's not here today, brought up a really good comparison, I think, in response to that. Because I said that it's kind of the thing that they say in Kingdom Come. It's like, what do you focus more on, the super or the man? I think once he kind of gets to that point, it's like we're focusing all in on the super aspect of it, which is fine. But I think for some people, it's definitely a gripe. But Lou saying that the way that he is portrayed here, that Clark is more the Vegeta route and not Goku, where Goku's more the Saiyan raised on Earth, and Vegeta is more the Prince of the Saiyans type feel, which I think is a really apt comparison to how Cal feels in here.
Yeah, I thought that was great when he said that. I was like, holy crap.
It's a good comparison.
It was.
Yeah. So, yeah. Either way, though, good movie. Very good movie. Let us know whether you're watching live or after the fact. What do you personally think of Man of Steel? What do you rate it out of 10? No hate in the comments, by the way. And I think as we've shown you guys throughout this, that we can have this conversation and have it to be just about the movie, which is the fair thing to do for the movie and for the fandom in general. Like, I think sometimes people get lost in the negativity that comes around specific fan bases, and it's easy to start hating and spewing hate towards the movie without really even giving it the proper credits where it is due. But you can critique these movies and still enjoy them, or critique them and not like them, but still accept that other people are going to like them. And if you love them, please let us know. Genuinely, let us know what you love about Man of Steel, and let us know what maybe you didn't personally like. But just keep it civil. That's all we ask.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
No, I agree with that. Like I said, growing up, it wasn't ever really one of my favorites. But we all have our own thoughts and opinions, and like I think Sonic 3 is one of the greatest movies of all time. Is it actually? No. But to me, it is. No Way Home, right up there with freaking best MCU movie ever. Is it actually? Debatable for a different live stream. But I don't care if people have different like opinions like that, and you like what you like, and just don't be a dick about it and trying to be this hateful to people that don't like what you like.
Agreed.
Because we all have our own unique opinions, and I think specifically the DC fandom, Star Wars fandom, Marvel fandom has all been at this level recently, especially DC a lot. And I think everybody should just do a little better. Marvel
For sure.
even has a lot of hate out there with Ironheart. Star Wars, don't even get me started with those. What's going on in that fandom?
Oh
But
my goodness. Yeah, that's a
like,
conversation for another day.
it's just like these IPs are so blown up at this point. There's gonna be so many projects that not everybody's gonna like because there's so many movies. Like, not everybody likes every single Superman comic ever made in existence. There's a lot of shitty Spider-Man comics out there that we don't like. I'm sure there's a lot of shitty Superman comics out there that Superman fans
There are.
hate.
There
So
are.
it's like, but they still like the characters overall, and they're still hopeful for the next iterations and just seeing where it goes. So
That's all we can ask for.
it's all we could ask for.
That's all we can ask for. So yeah, just be civil, keep it civil. Talk about it all day long. Because that's the kind of thing that we want. But just
Positivity.
0.3 positivity. So, but yeah, SB, want to end it for us today?
I will. So without further ado, like, comment, subscribe. It will really be appreciated. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers by here in 1 month. And it's actually 1 month from today.
And we're so close. Everybody watching.
Spread the word if you like superhero stuff to anyone that you know that likes superhero stuff. And I thank you all for being here. Join our Discord for extra behind the scenes chats with us. And what are the 3 things we always have to recommend at the end of every single video? You got to keep reading Superman. You got to keep watching Superman. You got to keep nerding out about Superman, because those are the 3 most important things here at Point 3, is to do those to enhance your experience on coming projects. Without further ado, have a great night.